Greetings and welcome to episode 24 of Bible 180, 180 episodes between Genesis and Revelation, 10 to 15 minutes at a time. We are on Exodus chapter 14. The people of Israel had escaped from Egypt. They put the blood of the lamb on their doorpost, and when the angel of death visited the people of Egypt, killing the firstborn son of all the Egyptians, Moses and the people of Israel escaped. And for the first time, we're introduced into the concept of fear, being afraid in their hearts. They were afraid that Pharaoh would now come and follow them and devastate them once again. And so their hearts were filled with fear. Fear is something that we live with. And they really didn't have a lot of this up until this time when they were out and fearful of the Pharaoh coming to get them. And fear is addressed in a fundamental way all throughout the Bible with the words, fear not, do not fear. In fact, whenever an angel appears to someone in the Bible, the people to whom the angel appears are terrified. And the first word is, do not fear. Do not fear. The words do not fear or be not afraid appear 365 times in the Bible, one for every day. Do not fear. And then the promise comes also with that, for I am with you. I am with you is one of the primary promises of the Bible. Do not fear is one of the primary emotions that we face, fear and anxiety, 365 times. So the first time the word fear really appears in the Bible took place in Egypt. And back then, people had been in bondage under Pharaoh for 400 years. God called Moses to lead the people out of captivity in Exodus 3. Again and again, Moses went and Pharaoh changed his mind. In Exodus 14, they have escaped from Pharaoh. And God sent them away, but God sent them around a little bit of a circuitous route in Exodus 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back. Okay? They were on their way away and going to the promised land, but God told them to turn back and camp in front of Hideroth between Milgal and the sea. In front of Baal-Zephon you shall camp opposite it by the sea. Moses will say of the Israelites, they're wandering aimlessly in the land. The wilderness has closed in on them. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, God says, and he will pursue them, and I will gain glory for myself over Pharaoh and all his armies, and all the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And eventually they did so. Now what's interesting is that God calls them to backtrack, okay? They had made some progress according to the route in which they were going. God says, yeah, you're not going in quite the right direction. Turn around, retrace your steps. And that's what they did. And God brought them into a geographical cul-de-sac. It was a dead-end street is where God brought them. Baal-Zephon, or Pi-Hahiroth as it's called, is a geographical cul-de-sac. And it is a place in which the Red Sea is in front of them. Mountains are on each side, and Pharaoh's army is coming down the valley. They are in a cul-de-sac, a dead end. Mountains on each side, the Red Sea in front of them, and Pharaoh and his army barreling down the valley to come toward them. So in verses 10 through 14 of Exodus 14, as Pharaoh drew near, the Israelites looked back, and there were the Egyptians advancing on them in great fear. Okay? The Israelites cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, they start complaining. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you've taken us away to die in the wilderness? what have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Why did you bring us out? Why did you deliver us? The people complain. Is this not the very thing we told you in Egypt? Leave us alone and let us serve the Egyptians, for it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. That's one of the do not fears. Stand firm and see the deliverance the Lord will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and all you have to do is stand still. So they say to Moses, why'd you bring us out here to die in the wilderness? Again, what God is doing with them wasn't enough. Let's go back to Egypt. It was easier getting the people out of Egypt than it was getting Egypt out of the people, right? They said, why do we have to be here? Why are you delivering us out here to die in the wilderness? Anything is better than where we're at. They looked at where they were and they wanted the old normal. They wanted to go back to the time when they were slaves, when they had no food to eat, when they worked their fingers to the bone making bricks and their children were mistreated and killed. They were having a spiritual crisis in that geographical cul-de-sacs. Their hearts were so filled with fear that they couldn't overcome it, and so they couldn't trust God. Remember I said a couple episodes ago, God answers prayer mostly with the words, trust me. Trust me. Trust is a primary faith response to God. They doubted that God could do what God was telling them to do. Fear filled them with so much anxiety that they couldn't think straight. They were following Moses, but they were complaining and complaining and complaining against Moses starting right now, and it will only increase for the next 40 years. Because think of this. The reason we need to overcome fear is because what fear does to us. Fear makes us skeptical. People said to Moses, why did you bring us out here? Were there no graves in Egypt? They were filled with fear and they began to doubt and be skeptical about themselves, about God, and about Moses. Fear also makes us selfish. What they said, what have you done bringing us out of Egypt? They were fearful. The only thing they could focus on was that what Moses had done to them. Look at what you've done, Moses. They excused themselves and they blamed Moses. They were initially happy to get out of Egypt, but now they blame Moses for the whole mess that they were in again. So they were also stubborn. Third thing fear does to us is it makes us stubborn. It's not only skeptical and selfish, but it makes us stubborn. Moses brought them out, and all of a sudden everything changed. And they said, while we were in bondage, let's go back to where we were, but at that cul-de-sac. At that geographical dead end, God had them right where God wanted them. God led them there, right? Remember? God said, backtrack and go to this place, this cul-de-sac, because God wanted to teach them three things that the Israelites needed to learn when they wanted to go back to bondage in Egypt. Moses told the people three things. Do not be afraid, stand firm, and see the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish among you today. So he says three things. First, be not afraid. When you're stuck, full of fear and anxiety, restoring your confidence in God really only comes through prayer. Overcoming your fear starts with realizing that God specializes in the impossible. God specializes in the impossible. Moses at the Red Sea, David facing Goliath, Daniel in the lion's den, Jesus and his disciples with 5,000 hungry people, a boat in the Sea of Galilee in the midst of a horrible storm. God specializes in the impossible, and it says, stand firm, let the miracle happen. And most importantly, don't leave before the miracle happens. For the people at the Red Sea, that's the first thing God wanted to teach them, for nothing is impossible with God. Second lesson was stand still. Stand still kind of tells us, even today, don't try to solve all of your problems by yourself, but rather rely on the power of God. Stand still. Don't mobilize the people to fight against the Egyptians, Moses, but rather stand still. Hold your peace within you and trust God. Trust in the power of God to bring you through anything you're facing. Trust God. And third, look at the deliverance that the Lord will accomplish among you today. Moses then raised up his hands at the Red Sea, remember that, and stretched them over the Red Sea, and it parted, and they went through on dry land, and the Egyptians who were chasing them were overcome by the waters of the Red Sea that came and devoured them and killed them. And it's so fascinating to see how God works. God says, stretch out your hands, Moses, over the Red Sea. It will be divided and the people will walk on dry land. Now, think about it. That's not a plan that Moses could have come up with in a million years. Raise your hands, touch your staff to the ground, and the seas will part. Moses couldn't even have imagined that. Moses did what God was asking him to do, and the waters divided. Shows that we should always leave room in our lives for God to work in a way that we never could have even imagined. Even though we sometimes pray to God with the solution we want. I mean, have you ever prayed to God and said, here's what I'd like you to do, God? Yeah, I have too. But we always need to leave open the possibility that God is more creative than us in resolving our challenges. With God, nothing is impossible, because the way that God worked back then and the way that God works now is God tells us, stand firm, do not be afraid, and see the deliverance that the Lord will be accomplishing among you today. Now, sometimes I wonder whether the people I'm talking to are having a tough time in life, whether they're needing an exodus, needing a way through something impossible. Sometimes I wonder whether we think, oh dear God, if you'd only do it my way, life would be so much better. But Moses and the people of Israel decided to trust God and see the deliverance that only God could give when God did something that they couldn't even imagine. If you find yourself in a place like that, just remember overcoming the fear and anxiety that we sometimes feel in our lives, and then we pray, oh dear God, with our hamster wheel brains that keep kind of going with two hamsters on the same wheel trying to go the opposite directions. Dear God, let me just trust you. Let me just turn my will and my life over to you to take care of, to lead me in the direction that you wish for me to go, to just kind of slow down, calm our hearts, minds, take deep breaths like I talked about yesterday. Breathe in, say Yahweh, do that a number of times, and just stand firm and look at the deliverance that God might give, that God will give when we trust God to deliver from whatever it is that we're facing. I love this story about the Red Sea and about the trust and the geographical cul-de-sac that they were in, the people of Israel, with Pharaoh coming after them, and the deliverance that God gave when they allowed their hearts to be able to trust God. I look forward to being with you on the next episode, and until then, make it a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.